Guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so happy to have you. So my future subscribers, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video in particular, we're going to be talking about and discussing the probability of an attack occurring here on the United States soil. The last time that we actually had a physical attack on our soil was back there in Pearl Harbor, but the continental United States, well, it goes a lot further. That goes from the War of 1812 and the Mexican-American War. That's about it. There wasn't really a lot of conflicts on the United States, continental United States, since the early 1900s when Spain and the United States fought it out over Cuba. But anyway, besides the point, the United States is undergoing massive changes, and it will not be unheard of if the United States does an attack on itself to justify a specific action. So in today's video, we're going to explore that. But before we do, I also did get a vision. It was like a dream, but it was like a very vivid dream. And you know how I always told you guys, if there's a dream, you forget it immediately. But if it's a vision, you remember that, you retain that information because it's something that is so real. And therefore, you're able to articulate that into your daily life. So today, I'm going to tell you also how, well, the number one thing is that death is not one thing, one size fits all. It changes with everybody. And so I'm going to tell you today what it will be like, depending on your perspective and your mindset on how death operates and death works. That will dictate how you yourself, when it's your time, what would life look like after you. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video as well. I feel like that's very informative, and I want to be able to get it out there before I do forget. But anyway, this video is being recorded on none other than Monday, June 23rd at 8:43 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as of when I'm recording this specific video. As I have talked about before, this will be the last time that I'm filming in the kitchen, so we will be going back to our studio sometime this week. But anyway, I do want to do a quick community spotlight. If you want to help out the channel grow, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, engaging with the content overall really help boost the algorithm here on YouTube. And this video, again, like I said, is just for entertainment purposes only. And if you want to follow my Blue Sky account or my Facebook group, go into the description or the comment section below and follow them. I'll personally notify you when I do post an upload. Now, going to the community spotlight, I do want to acknowledge some people who have been doing just that, helping the channel grow. We have Sarah Sitlick. We have here Emma Herbert. We have Brenda C. We have Jenny Bay. And we also have Nancy Dixon. I see a lot of you guys have just come back onto the community spotlight and some new ones. So thank you all you guys for your love and support and appreciation. It does not go unnoticed. Even YouTube does not unsee it. It sees your work. It sees your effort. So thank you for those of you guys who helped support the channel last week. Alright, so let's go ahead. Let's talk about everything in today's video. And let's go from there. I don't want this being a long intro. I hate long intros. I'm sure you do as well. Alright, so before we begin, let me just tell you about that death thing. Again, this video is just for entertainment purposes only, for educational purposes only. I do gotta be careful what I say though, because the last time I did this type of thing here in the United States, it happened 8 days later, but this video was forced to be taken down. Alright, so let's talk about my vision first. My first dream that I had in terms of death. It was my first real one. It happened just today. I just woke up about 20 minutes ago, as of when I'm recording this. So, and that being said here, I remember being on like this elevator, and the elevator was going up, and we were a bunch of kids in there, and we were trying to avoid this guy in this amusement park who was trying to go after us. But we realized that if we go one story above, we will be able to be fine and safe. And then so lo and behold, we do that, but then somehow we end up on the wrong floor. The kids are fine, they're wherever they are. But then me and some other person, we end up on accidentally another level. We advanced beyond the physical realm at that point. Very different, very weird. Like we clicked the button and everybody else went up one flight, but we went a little higher. We ascended higher than those who were moving up a floor. And so because we ascended higher, we ended up landing onto this brand new desk. It's the reception area. Now, must I remind you is that this was an amusement park, which means that where I was at the time in which it took place was their own theme. I don't know what kind of theme it was, but it was like very Western, but also very food related. So it was like food cartoons and all those stuff like that. It's like what's that food movie? Sausage Party, but like it was appropriate for kids at the time. It wasn't like inappropriate at all. Except it had like a very sinister story or backline. It was telling me when I was going through the trails and the tour, they were saying that all these things, everybody was paying attention and enjoying all these things. Except there's one story within the movie franchise, which is not a legit movie, so I have no idea what it's based off of. But there's one story that tells how life really is. Everybody who was at the amusement park avoided that. They went to every other ride, but except that ride. They did not want to experience that, but yet people didn't want to experience what life really was like. And I think that is really telling of how life and how people operate here on Earth. But going back into the vision, we end up back in this reception area. And all of a sudden, I go up to the receptionist. I'm like, woo, did you ever like go somewhere? You're like rushing, you're like panting, you're on high adrenaline, and you go to the desk. Now, I don't know if I was physically me. I feel like I wasn't. I feel like I was a girl in some way. I remember this is a modern reception area. So this is not like 1950. This is like very modern, if you will. And so I go to this reception desk. I go, is there anything that I can do? Like, what floor am I on? And she goes, hi, welcome. This is the reception area. I go, okay, floor. And she goes, well, you died. I go, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. I don't think I did. And I had no reception of the death. I did not see the death happen at all. But, but she goes, well, don't worry about it. She's like, we're a hotel. You're here. So we have a room for you. Would you like the room? I go, sure, but I don't have any money for it. She goes, that's fine. The way the money works in this system is that essentially you would have to just go in there, you hang out at your room, at your apartment complex, but in order for us to generate revenue as a hotel, you yourself need to join clubs. And you get paid over time. The longer you are in a club, the more likely you are to make more money. And because of that money, you just have to pay taxes at the end of each month and give it to the hotel, and the hotel would generate revenue. So that is essentially how they would do it. Essentially, you would have to join clubs. So maybe that's fun club, maybe like bingo night. I don't know. I didn't really do anything yet, but you will essentially join a club, and the longer the older time or more loyal you are to a membership period. So in terms of clubs, so to say you stay in the club for a year, um, you will generate revenue because you were in that club. And so I go, oh, okay, that's interesting, that's different. So I said, sure, that doesn't sound anything bad at all. And I go, okay, so how long is the lease? And she goes, 3 years. I'm like, oh, okay, so the lease is 3 years for this apartment. I'm like, I didn't know they talk in years. I didn't know they do currency, but apparently I guess, like I said, that is not one size fit all. It changed for everybody. But this might give you a clear indicator of how death works based on your perception. I personally never ever saw death working like this, but in some way it does. But so because of the currency thing, they were saying like, listen, I was like, okay, so after the 3 year lease, what happened after death? And she goes, well, after the 3 year period, you're going to advance to a better home because you'll be richer, you'll be wealthier, you'll be able to afford a bigger complex. You never downsize from your original starting point. You always increase from your current standing. And that's kind of like give us a notice how you cannot bring valuables from one life into the next, but you can increase it within your next lifetime. So essentially, in hindsight, death is not end all be all. Instead, it's just a continuation of what death is like. You will never know that you died. Some people I have noticed when I have what they call paranormal activities, like that Nazi who came into my room. As you guys all remember the story, we talked about this, how he ended up being stuck in between the purgatory. He was not allowed to go into the light, but he was not allowed to go anywhere else except walk as a ghost here on Earth until he met his point where he was able to transition over. We talked about that. Everybody's different in terms of lifetime and life cycle. So for him, it was a spaceship, and him meeting his girlfriend, who he felt like he changed so much so that he became unrecognizable, not realizing that she truly loved him. Now, when I say Nazi, was not really a Nazi. He was just the wrong person at the wrong time, at the wrong place. Ended up being enrolled into the military by Hitler in exchange for his girlfriend to live, not realizing that soon after he signed up, they killed his girlfriend anyway. So that is the whole moral of the story. You can kind of get the whole gist. I'm not going to ruin the whole story for you. But essentially, understanding that life doesn't have to end. And sometimes when you die, you're never going to know you died. It's only for some people. Some people don't have that luxury. And sometimes people don't want to know that luxury. Sometimes you don't want to know. But the moral of the story is life can continue well beyond death. And I think that that is something that's very important. I ask my guys, I'm like, hey, listen, was this dream accurate? Was this vision accurate? And they go, yeah, in some way it is. And I think that it's really telling. And I hope that you take this information not as a way to formulate, but to understand the complexity of the universe and that life does not die after death. But life can bloom and can restart, and you can have a happier time beyond that. And I also talk about how death doesn't occur automatically for many people until older life forms, which essentially means that just say they have like 17 million different versions of themselves in the same timeline, doing something different in every different universe, or every version of this universe. Until every single one dies, you will still be alive in some capacity. So just say you die in this one. But just say Jimmy Carter, let's use Jimmy Carter for example. Jimmy Carter died in this timeline, but just say in another timeline close to ours, he dies a day later. And it just keeps going and going and going and going. So his body and soul reshifted into each version of himself that's still alive up until there is no more versions or copies of him, then his soul can rest. The same thing applies to you. So, anyway, let's go ahead. Let's begin. Let's ask that question now. I just figured that was a little food for thought. But, yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Something I didn't think I would get. A little alarming, though, because I'm like, why am I getting this? Particularly in relation to this video. But, anyway, let's go ahead. Let's begin. We have a lot to get through today. I'm not here to waste your time. So, let's do this. Okay, so Spirit Angels tell me about the United States. Okay. Okay, let's see. What did the United States say? Okay. Will there be a fake attack on U.S. soil to justify an action, to justify war? Will there be a fake attack to justify war and get the public support on the side? We have here 9 of Swords, the 6 of Wands reverse, 10 of Pentacles. You want to know what's really interesting too, because if you guys watched my previous video, talk about are we going to war, and the Iran video, which I'll put the link in the 2 videos in the link below or in the description at the end of today's video, you would know that I talked about how Congress was very openly supportive of the war, that they themselves are like, yeah, we'll fund it, we'll support that, we'll go to war for them. There was a lack of resistance here. It's almost like Congress declares war. They decide to go to war. It didn't make any sense, but then I was like, oh, you know, the United States is very known for creating atrocities, for killing millions of Americans to justify an action, to justify to go to war. For example, the United States did this in order to try to initiate a war in Cuba by trying to kill Americans at home to try to justify the war, to go to war. And that's essentially what the United States is doing. We have the 9 of Swords here. The 9 of Swords is upset. This is something that is an upsetting thing. This is not something that should ever happen, but it's something that happened when the government is too corrupt. Now remember, this doesn't mean that it's just under Republican presidents. Democratic presidents are just as evil in doing that as Republican ones are. So we do want you to keep in mind that, you know, this isn't just a Republican thing. This is not a Donald Trump thing. This is a historical reference to how the United States has governed, how the United States has entered war by initiating a war or by faking an attack in order to justify an action. And here it's the 6 of Wands. The 6 of Wands is not a victory. It's not something that was very lighthearted, but something that had occurred. Now, remind you, the United States is in its Pluto return, right? The United States entered its Pluto return a couple of years ago, but it has started to enter the United States birth chart in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan, and then it started to go pretty badly from there. But in Pluto return, it also comes with the waves of everything that every bad president has done will be co-joined with the last president. So the last president will be Donald Trump in this aspect. Doesn't mean there won't be any more presidents. That's not true. But in terms of the presidential power and the power of the United States at this point in time, Donald Trump will be the last president of the United States. So with that being said, all the bad things that every president did will be co-joined and will be center stage and Pluto return under this new president, which is Donald Trump. He will do almost every single bad thing every president has done, from the Trail of Tears, from mass deportation, to concentration camps. We had all that. We did it in the United States. We just say it didn't happen again. But also, we also had a very authoritarian president with John Adams, the president that came right after George Washington. So with that being said here, when you start to go back into the cards here, right, you have the Ten of Pentacles. And the Ten of Pentacles means funded. They want the back end. This is generational support. So this is generational support because people are upset about the war. And they're upset because, in a way, they thought they wanted peace. They wanted peace. But the country's like, no, 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 no. We have a whole different plan for you. And we want you to be supportive of our mission, of our goal, our destiny, right? This is what we're getting. There's no better person to ask than this tarot deck, which I made. So let's take a look. Will there be a specialized attack on the United States by the U.S. government in order to perpetrate and to, in a hindsight spirit, to get the public to be on the side of the government and to justify a wartime action? Will there be an attack on the United States to justify a political action against a country by justifying an action, by attacking their own people, but blaming it on a foreign entity or foreign government? Okay, so a lot of cards came out, so we're going to read this. So the card that came out was the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, forward or backward. We have here pre-justice in court. This is Supreme Court. So Supreme Court in some way comes a role in here. So there is justice that's being served here in some way. We have here in the past tense, we have the 1980s and the 1990s. Very interesting that this is something that we talk about in the past. This is in the past tense, which means that this is the modern day. This is the modern era. But what's really interesting as well is we have the impeachment trial on the top. Right? It's very vague, but it's there. And it's talking to us about how this is a way to not only initiate something, but also to hold something as well. So it feels very much like if this were to occur, this would be also enabled to slow down the progression of the impeachment, if you will. Or it could increase depth by a lot. So we'll wait and see how it's going to play out. We do have here above this Nine of Pentacles, we have the witch trial. This means Salem false accusation, which means execution or death penalty or black or white magic, bias court trial. This is the witch trial right here. And this is, again, the Supreme Court came in at the main center here, the main focus. And here you have execution, death penalty, Salem false accusation. So we're asking whether or not the United States is going to perpetrate an attack on itself, on its own people, to justify an action by blaming it on somebody else. So what's going to happen? They're saying if this was to happen, again, this is a probability. This is what we're reading on. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's worth the read, if you will. But essentially what it's saying is that eventually, if this was to happen, it will be a false accusation. It's not one rooted in basic facts. We have here as well as we have the Six of Wands reversed, which means this is not what people wanted. People wanted peacetime. They didn't want to go back into war. And this is the popular vote right here. Democrats win but lose. Right, we talk about this. The Democrats win but lose. But you all know how that goes. So you all know what happened in 2024, right? The Democrats won, but they didn't get sworn in. And this is the Democrats win but lose. And this is not what people wanted. This is not what people voted for. Now going into this reading here with the 10 Pentacles, which is a lot of generational support, right? Trying to get the generations supported, and the possibility this would be initiation of World War. This would be initiation of a World War. We have post-influenza pandemic. This is the roaring 20s with anything but the roaring 20s. What would be instead, we have here strength and freedom, American Eagle, which means that they're trying to strengthen the patriotic people of the United States to try to get them to support something by saying, no, we have to be resilient to strengthen strength and freedom. And then here we have as well, we have democratic enthusiasm, which is very high, it's reverse. We have here Democrats hold the White House. So it's very interesting as well because the last time the World War happened, we had 2 Democratic presidents. But this time, we have a Republican one. This will be the first time a Republican will lead a world war. But the caveat, though, is very interesting because I also said that when I was reading on World War a long time ago, this was probably say 3 months ago, I asked about the probability of a World War III occurring, and I said within the next 5 years it would occur. But it could not occur before 5 years. So whatever's happening now is the start of World War III, but it's not the initiation of World War III. World War III and its hindsight won't come until 5 years. Now keep in mind that tarot is very fluid, and it's very hard to really pinpoint time, everything like that. So more likely than not, I will probably say within the next 3 years, so 2028, 2025. 2027 will probably be the most likeliest years where I could see it probably happening. But according to tarot, it won't happen till around 2029, 2030. So we will wait and see what happens. God forbid it doesn't, because I'm not getting dropped into war and I'm definitely not fighting. But if anything was to happen, this will be the way it will play out. Now, what's really interesting as well is that when you start to look at it from a different standpoint of view, there's something in the World War from the past, from both World War I and World War II, that the United States leadership at this point in time is looking at. There's something in this leadership that the U.S. government wants from the past to be brought back. They want the power. They want the control. They want the ability to look good. Remember, I told you, Donald Trump's second term was not going to be about his first term. His second term was about making sure he looked good, that he was remembered well in the history book. The best way that, the universe and the collective could truly move on beyond Trump is to basically give him the same treatment. Not only remove him from the history books, but to redefine who he is. Because well beyond his deathbed, there was no one else who would define him better than a historian. But they have to do it in a way that is a way that Donald Trump himself would not like it. That's the best form of treatment, because he cannot control his image beyond death. I think that would be more telling than anything. And then you have the Supreme Court. So yeah, I do feel like if there was to be something that would be initiated, it was something that would be initiated to enter World War. So World War II, it was, what's it called? It was the Pearl Harbor attack. It was an attack on the United States to justify the attack. It was just on the Japanese, but instead the U.S. government was like, okay, let's go after the Germans, even though the Germans did not initiate the attack at all. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look and see what made the United States enter World War I. Because that would really give us a clue, insight into what is happening in the modern era. So World War I, why did the U.S. join? Okay, let's see. The United States entered World War I primarily due to Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare and the Dimmerman telegram. Okay, so Germany's submarines were attacking U.S. merchant ships, trading ports and stuff like that. The United States were trying to trade and trying to use the best of this time period to boost up its economy. And you also have here the Dimmerman telegram, which it says here the Dimmerman telegram, a message intercepted from Germany to Mexico proposing a military alliance against the United States further fuels Americans' outrage and a sense of threat. Now this makes a lot of sense though, because remember the Mexican-American War happened less than 20 years, or a little bit over 20 years, from when World War II started. So that's why it was very significant. So it makes a lot of sense that the U.S. will be very furious at trying to have the Germans try to initiate a war with Mexico, so that the United States and Mexico will fight it out and stay out of the war to keep the United States, quote, occupied. So it's rather interesting. So let's go ahead and let's take a look and see if we can get a little bit more detail, and then we'll end today's video. I have a lot of videos to cover. We were supposed to talk about Harris all this past week, but Spirit had other plans, the universe had other plans, so we have to delay that by quite a little bit. But it'll be coming soon, I promise you, once we get all the important information out. So there's that. Okay, so Spirit Angel Tommy, give me a little bit more detail on the United States and what is happening in the United States. Okay. What is happening in the United States? Like, give me a little bit more information. Is the United States government going to be creating a fake attack on U.S. soil, hurting its own people in order to justify an action, and blaming it on a foreign government or a foreign entity? Will there be an attack on American soil perpetrated by the U.S. government? And one last card. And it makes sense too, because like I was kept talking about, Uranus entering Gemini and how that is very important in astrology. Well, it came way too early. The United States had entered the war against Iran. That makes no sense because the United States is not being attacked by Iran, but yet there was others involved that initiated it, if you know what I mean. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at what is going on here about the possibility of the U.S. government attacking its own people to justify a further action. Alright, so Spirit Angels, tell me about the U.S. government and it possibly attacking its own people. Tell me about the astrology and Uranus and Gemini. Uranus and Gemini is going to be pretty big, explosive. I said it was going to be a very explosive month. When I started to look at my past readings, back in the 7th month of Donald Trump's term, I talked about war in the end of June into early July. So we'll pull that up. But anyway, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at these cards and let's go from there. This is the astrology. Okay, so the first card that comes in, we have reversed, is the Wheel of Fortune. Things are moving forward in some way. This is moving forward. This is Congress. So something gets moved forward in Congress. Something that was halted starts to move and no longer grind to a halt. We have here the next card that comes in. It's the Moon card, which means hidden intention. Something is hidden here. So Congress is starting to move forward, but something is hidden behind the scenes. Now remember, I told you, be careful of the Democrats as well. The Republicans and the Democrats are in cahoots in some way. I said this many times before, but Democrats cannot be trusted. There are those within the Democratic Party you can trust, but the party itself, you cannot. Now remember, I'm an independent. I've always been an independent. And I'm always willing and happy to criticize anybody when they do something wrong, regardless of political affiliation. If you cannot criticize somebody, you're in a cult. If you can criticize someone, then you are not in a cult. Simple and formulated. If somebody tells you, oh, you should not be talking bad about them, or you should not be saying this about them, you are in a cult. Okay? Simple as put. We have the 10 of swords here. We're acting like is there going to be an attack by an American government on its own people? We have the 10 swords here. It is challenging Congress from moving forward and the hidden intention here. The United States, right, the American people. Then you also have here by polluted air in the city. So if there was an attack, it would be on a specific city. I'm getting like LA. I'm getting LA. Like they're trying to use that as the formulation to say, oh, okay, they're using it as a place to justify an action. So it feels very much like they're going to, if they were to do LA, here's the intention behind it. The intention is, well, we get rid of the people who are protesting or riling against me, but also we are like, oh, well, I'm going to go in and protect them, and I'm going to justify and give them justice by, going after those who did this, even though the government did it themselves. So the government kind of like killed two birds with one stone, if you will, right? But that's not necessarily saying it's going to happen specifically in Los Angeles. But it feels like if he was, it would be an intentional city. It's going to be an intentional city. So it's going to be a city where he killed two birds with one stone. We're going to wait and see what that is. We do also have here as well, we do have the two cups. The two cups is the unionship between the people and the government. This is a lack of unionship. It feels very much like the United States is not going to be in a very happy period, which makes a lot of sense. We also have here, when you start to look at what is moving forward in Congress, but it's being challenged. Let's take a look. We have here Pisces, psychic, intuitive, dreaming, right? So some people in government are getting hits. They're getting psychic hits, but they're also acting with emotion. So there is moving forward with the emotional aspect, the water element. And we also have here as well, we have the North Node, which means destiny, purpose, and activation. So it feels like very much so that whatever Congress is doing, is supposed to be doing, it's moving into its purpose, moving into where it's supposed to be, and what it's meant to do in this period in time. The question is what is that? Because as we try to go with the underlying hidden intention, we have the Scorpio in reverse. The Scorpio is a very water card, but it's reversed. It's not with the emotion. We have here deep, intense, transformative. It's not deep. It's not transforming. It's remaining stagnant. The challenge to this is making Congress stagnant. Congress just starts to move. It's no longer going to a screeching halt. Something made Congress move, and it's because it's the original purpose, the original intention. You cannot override something's original intention. You cannot. It's simply impossible. When we start to go in from past the 10 of stories, we start to go into the air card here, which we might talk about 2029, kind of being a specific year, more like closer to the 5th year. We have here, this is like what we're expecting. But this also could be due to pollution as well. Because I'm also getting in, even if they don't attack, there's an attack on the American environment, and in itself, spiritually, it considered an attack on American people. So regardless of how this plays out, this could be the modern version of modern terminology that the U.S. government refuses to help other people and justifies it and saying, oh, they made this man-made weather and we're going to go after them. Kind of like that. We have here above the air card, we have two cards represented here. The first card is Lunar Eclipse, which means culmination, release, illumination, which means this has not begun. So something here has not begun, which is the city. So the city is reversed here, which means culmination, release, illumination. This has not been realized yet. This is something that's been in the formulation here, which tells me that we're in this aspect now. We have not moved beyond this. We have not went to this section yet. We also have here this card here. What is moving into the upright position? We have the cardinal, which basically means initiation, spark, or vision. So there is initiation here. There is a spark. There is an intention here, but it has not begun. It has not started. It's in its starting phase, which means that it's in its infancy, which means that the intention is there. The intention has been put out to the universe, but it has not come to fruition because it takes time. It needs to pass the next lunar eclipse, whenever that is. And under here, the air card, we have careers, which means self-care, wellness, and agriculture, right? And I talked about the environment, right? And this is also something that had not begun yet, or had just started, and it had not went into the upright position, which means that if there was an attack, there will be an attack on the American agriculture or a resource center. So again, that makes a lot of sense. Now that the city is not necessarily a big city, it's going to be a city where there's a lot of resources, if you will. There's a resource city. It's a city or a place where there's an enormous amount of resources that outweighs the amount of people living there. There could be a farm. There could be a city, maybe like I'm getting tech boom. There could be a massive amount of tech compared to the amount of people in a small area, in a small defined area. But this could be what this could be indicating. This could be like a storage unit, a warehouse. Could be something that's just like that. There's going to be a large quantity of something in one place in one period of time. That's where the attack. If it was to be placed, it would be an attack on that. So the universe is saying, oh, take care of yourself. Be prepared. You know, it's not saying that it's coming anytime soon, but this is the moment where you start preparing. You know, honestly, somebody made a good point. They were like, well, so if I want to survive a nuclear blast, will I? I'm like, kind of not. Because look at life after the nuclear war. I'd be like, I'd rather die. But anyway, besides the point, that's not like you need to know that. But let's take a look at the top of the deck and the bottom deck, and then we finish off the reading. Top of the deck here we have is what is moving up in its upright position. We have Taurus, which means tactile, grounded, and stable, which means we are in unstable territory at the moment, but we're going to become a little bit more stable as time goes on. And the bottom of the deck here, we have here what has just happened. We have Earth, magnetism, grounded, and enduring. That's like what I said, that we are also not grounded. We just passed our grounded period. We went into war. That's an ungrounded state, ungrounded background. This also was on the bottom of the deck. It landed on the table. I didn't realize it until now. We have here waxing crescent moon, which just passed, which is focus, conceptualization, and strategy. We're asking whether or not the U.S. government is going to attack Americans on its own soil or perpetuate something. It's a strategy, not something that has initiated yet, but something that is being put out to the universe now. The intention is there. So what's going to happen? It's not saying with certainty, but this is how it would likely happen if this was to play out in this very particular matter. The bottom deck here is we have the Ace of Wands reverse, and we have the Sagittarius card. This is not what we voted for, the 30th card. Alright, so take a look and see. I'm getting told June 30th in particular, there's going to be a very specific event that's going to happen, or it's going to be a key highlight to whether or not the U.S. government does anything against its people. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. I love you. Thank you for your support. I love you. Little hearts. And I'll see you all next time. Peace out.